right, thank you so much for staying with us beyond the headlines. I do beg your pardon. Again, I'm on the wrong program. It happens from time to time. You're watching All Angles. Thank you so much for being with us. Lots of legislation before the Parliament. And we're talking today about two important pieces of legislation. One dealing with the establishment of a national identification system. The other dealing with the creation or declaration of what are called special operating zones. We're going to start out by looking, in fact, at the bill dealing with the special operating zones. And Vashon Brown has this overview.
Crime is still a big concern for many Jamaicans. In fact, it has led to calls for the government to act. In his budget presentation in Parliament on March 21, Prime Minister Andrew Holness outlined the government's crime plan. That plan included another law. The law reforms Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Act.
Mr. Speaker, this legislation is designed to give effect to a well-established and practiced security and community building strategy called Clear, Hold and Build.
The opposition raised concerns about parts of the bill.
There exist provisions in law already to do this, and on the face of it, though we need to give it closer examination, it would transfer to the cabinet powers that properly belong to the Parliament, because it is in effect declaring a state of emergency in particular areas of the country.
The Memorandum of Objects and Reasons for the bill states that it seeks to balance the need for security and the need for giving members of the JCF and the JDF certain essential powers that are required to address serious crimes, while upholding the rule of law and protecting the fundamental rights and freedoms of citizens. The bill would empower the Prime Minister in Council to declare an area a zone of special operations. There would be circumstances for the setting up of a zone, reasonable grounds to believe rampant criminality, gang welfare, escalating violence and murder, and threat to the rule of law and public order. A zone would initially be designated for 60 days, but the National Security Council would be able to extend that time for another 60 days. The minister would have to make a statement to Parliament within 14 days of each extension. The bill would also provide for the establishment of a joint command comprising senior members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and the Jamaica Defence Force. The JCF and the JDF senior members will jointly be in charge of operations within a zone. The bill would also give the joint command the powers to set up cordons and declare curfews within a zone. It would also empower members of the joint force to search a person, vehicle, or place without a warrant within a zone if they reasonably suspect that an offense had been, was being, or was about to be committed. Vashon Brown for All Angles.
Thank you so much, Vashon. And for clarity, when you hear reference there to the Prime Minister in Council, what the bill says is that means the Prime Minister presiding as the chairman of the National Security Council. And we have with us, joining us on set, Clyde Williams, attorney at law. We also have with us Jacqueline Cummins, president of the Jamaica Bar Association. Roger Malcolm is advocacy manager of human rights groups Jamaicans for Justice. And just for absolute clarity and disclosure, Clyde, you are, of course, a member of the People's National Party, albeit not speaking for the organization at this time?
That's correct. A little bit more than a member, we'd say I'm a delegate.
Okay.
I'm a card-carrying delegate.
Now you know. And let me just say, viewers, I just want to let you know as well, we did invite a representative of the Office of the Prime Minister to join us because both these bills were in fact tabled by the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness. We were told that unless a representative of OPM would be on by themselves, they wouldn't participate. So we weren't willing to accommodate that for this program. All right, so let me start with you, Clyde Williams. Is this bill necessary to fight crime?
I started a bias because, and I want to acknowledge, the Prime Minister has to lead, Cabinet has to lead, and that's their purview to lay down policy. They will face the electorate. I don't have that kind of situation. So I want to just acknowledge that this is their policy position becoming law. So I wouldn't be going in this direction at all. So I started a bias. This is not the direction I'm going. Say, for instance, the military. I would be looking to use the military more in investigations, in beefing up the investigative capacity of the police force. I'd be trying to create something that draw upon all of that military ability that sits there. I wouldn't be trying to make military men constables. I don't want my soldiers to become constables, to be able to search people and so on. That's not what soldiers do. So I wouldn't be going in that direction. I would be going the work of the police. I'd be thinking about how do I, in 6 months, give the police more information, technology at their disposal. Everybody knows it's a secret in law that the police are under capacity in terms of just transferring, getting digital evidence, videos and so on. I've been looking to do that. So I've been
you're
looking...
taking issue with the premise of the bill.
That's the point. I've been looking to go in this direction because this direction we have tried. I'm not saying that there aren't elements that he may look at, but it can't be the plank. So the military is not going to be brawn and turn constables. I want the brain there. We need to beef investigation capacity up, and I want that.
All right, hold that thought. And let me just remind our viewers that you can participate via Twitter. Our hashtag is TVJ All Angles. We'll be sharing your comments all throughout the program. Jacqueline comments, is this necessary? Is this one of those, what they call it, magic bullets that's going to help us get on top of this crime monster?
I think what has happened, the Prime Minister has recognized that there is a problem. And he has to find a way to solve this problem. The crime monster has overcome us, and it is now all corners of the island. Yesteryear, you wouldn't hear of murders in Hanover. You wouldn't hear of things in Trelawney. You're hearing of it now. Westmoreland, you'd only hear about people being stabbed or cut. Now you're hearing about gun murders in Westmoreland. So the monster that used to engulf Kingston has now spread to the rest of the island, not just Montego Bay. It has spread. So if you are going to introduce a bill, which the focus of this bill is to create special zones, and that you alone and the team determine what those special zones are, what is to stop the continued migration of the criminals in so doing? So it's a good start, but aspects of the bill need a lot of work on. It does not give you the fullness that you really require to understand what it is you're asking these policemen and soldiers to go there and do. You tell them that they must seize property, but you don't tell them for how long they can seize it for.
Indefinitely.
You tell them that they can arrest or detain somebody, and you put all of these niceties in there about in arresting and detaining them, there must be access to their lawyer, a telephone call to their family. Looks very nice on paper, but you and I know in reality, when you want to go visit your client in a lockup, the bureaucracy you have to go through. So if this is what they're coming up with, which is a start, yes, because you see a concerted effort is being made to tackle this crime monster. But they need take a little more time and don't rush this into law.
Roger.
Yes, thank you, Dion. So first I'd like to say that I agree that we need to act for crime. I fully understand because crime undermines the human rights of everybody. So human rights protections are both for the public and those who are accused. That being said, two issues occur here. The first is whether or not the bill is actually a substantial change in the powers that the police have. And today the Attorney General has argued that it's not really a substantial change in the powers. So I'm a little bit unclear as to why it's absolutely necessary. And then the second point is that for many persons who would complain about human rights protections, what this bill allows for is actually status quo for many persons. So right now, most policing is force heavy. Most searches are conducted without warrants. We already know this. And so the argument put forward that it is these procedural things that tie the hands of the police, that there is a surplus of rights that limits crime fighting. The experience of persons is that that's not the case. So is it true that we need to limit the procedural requirements of police in order to properly fight crime, and right now they don't even adhere to it? It suggests that the rational connection between these new legislative measures and the actual case status on the ground would not be so vastly transformed. The only thing that is major in the transformation is a transfer of the power to declare geographic zones, not just from the Commissioner. It still exists in the Commissioner under Section 50 of the Constabulary Force Act, but now the Prime Minister has it. And it does introduce concerns, and I'm not saying we're against it. We're not against the bill. We're about moderating the aspects of the bill, and it's a bit concerning that the Prime Minister would have the unilateral ability, technically, to declare a zone of special operation in the future. So 20 years' time during an election period, I don't know, and that it's only after 180 days that Parliament would ever get to vote on an affirmative resolution to change it or not to change it. So one question that needs to be raised, and I hope the government can provide a clear answer to this, because, again, we're not opposed in principle, is what deficiency exists right now in Section 50 of the Constabulary Force Act, where the commissioner can declare these zones. And, for example, if the commissioner says, I don't really think there's a zone that's needed here, when the Prime Minister says, well, I think so, and that the political directorate now can go ahead and execute crime-fighting measures that the security forces normally had reserved to their judgment. So it's an area for clarity that we would need to be updated, because then this bill and the Constabulary Force Act would be existing simultaneously. So you could have the Prime Minister declaring some zones.
All right. Hold that thought, because I'm going to go to break and come back on this very important point, because what I'm hearing, certainly all you're saying, is that a lot of the so-called powers are not necessarily different from that currently existing in law.
A few, but
But
not
there are
much.
two striking differences, and they're very significant.
And one of them includes the declaration.
One of them is that the soldiers will now have the powers of consent to search. And the Prime Minister, the leader of a political party, and the Prime Minister having the power to declare an area a zone for 6 months without any parliamentary vote on it. The 6 months is accumulated 6 months. It's 60, sorry, not 6 months, 180 days. That's what? That's 6 months? Yes.
6 months.
Yeah.
Yes. It's 60 days first, and then there's an extension by the body that he chairs.
Correct.
And then there is an extension of the extension. So you have 3 times 60. That's 3 6 is 18, 100.
Yes.
So 6 months. I have a difficulty because our system of governance doesn't really anticipate the Prime Minister respectfully. This is an opinion.
Hold that thought for me. I have to go to break on that, but we're going to come back and pick up on that very important point. Remember, our hashtag, it's TVJ All Angles. Stay tuned. We'll soon come.